there's a bit of a renaissance going on in a lot of areas. And I think that the authenticity of true art is going to be abundantly clear.
Welcome back to Indie Spunk Unfiltered. I am Beck, and today I am joined by an author, an intuitive reader, a spiritual mentor, an entrepreneur, a creative, a Capricorn, a projector, a daughter, a wife, and someone I'm lucky enough to call my friend. It's Kate Van Horn. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What an intro.
You know, it could have been longer. I did have a longer one written, but honestly, I was like, I need her to just tell the people.
Tell the people what's up.
Yeah. I think you're a true, like, multi-hyphenate.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yes. Entrepreneur, I feel like being, like, the umbrella that kind of, like...
Yeah, and creative. I've lately been leaning more into that because all of my work, although related to my business, has that through line of creative energy.
Yeah.
Creating more of it, working with the energy, shifting it, and so on.
And so we have known each other for...
a bajillion years.
A long time now. Like, a long time.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even know how many years.
Well,
was it 2017 we met?
Yeah, at least.
That's
if not,
crazy.
maybe 2016. And then, but we did our first ever podcast a long time ago, a different...
Yes.
In like, it must have been 2017 because I was here in LA.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so 9 years. That's insane.
That's kind of crazy.
That's really crazy. Yeah. Okay, so we met through another podcast that I was hosting at the time, living in Boston, hosting the Detox and Chill podcast with my good friend Meg. And you simultaneously were hosting events, and you were very much in the wellness space, like spearheading, honestly, the wellness space.
I'll take that. Yeah, it was like peak wellness time.
It was.
Really, like smoothie bowls were abundant. Life was
Green
really,
juices.
Wellness was all of that. And I was working at the time, like you said, in a wellness event company with two of my friends.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And your Instagram handle was?
She be Kailin' it.
She be Kailin' it.
Yeah.
I feel like peak millennial wellness.
When it's a kale pun, you know it's going to be good.
Yes. Yeah. Is your business still?
Yeah. So it's actually really funny. Sometimes when I do like coaching and stuff, someone will pay me through PayPal, whatever. And I'll get emails that are like, just to be sure, it's Kailin' it LLC, correct? And I'm like, I really got to change that.
No, keep it forever.
I think I will.
It's a moment in time, honestly.
It's a moment in time.
Yeah, it's so funny because, you know, wellness is obviously huge now. But I don't think people realize, like, just the kind of bubble that was being...
The pipeline of how we got here. Yeah, it was crazy.
We got here.
We were obsessed, right? Like the crystals and the everything. And now what's interesting, it's now navigated to have like two different paths. I see wellness as like super, super spiritual now or like very biohacky.
Yes.
And at the time, wellness felt pretty just a little more chill.
Yeah.
More like bubbly, colorful fun.
We were just trying to figure out, I know the reason we started the podcast, we were just trying to figure out how to not get burnt out in our corporate jobs. And supplements were kind of a newer thing. Like meditation was kind of like on the verge. And so obviously meditation's been around forever, but just like in the public, it was, you know, getting more popular. So yeah, it feels like a different life, honestly.
It does. It felt very self-love driven.
Yes.
Anti-burnout.
Yes.
With a simultaneous girl boss culture, which was a little confusing. But here we are now.
Here we are now. So now you just finished a book.
I did.
You just submitted a book to your editor, your second book.
My second book.
Which is wild. I love being able to tell people that I'm friends with an author.
I love being able to tell people that I'm friends with you. So that's mutual.
And I think I'm so excited that you're on the podcast today because you're not in the filmmaking world, but I feel like you're kind of adjacent to it.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, being in LA, you've been my spiritual guru for years now.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like I've texted you in like my darkest moments being like, can you please
I have a self-tape.
Right?
What do I do?
Is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? So Kate has read tarot for years. She's been reading, is that how you say it? Like reading my tarot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Reading your cards.
Yeah. Reading my cards for many years. And yeah, she's gotten me out of some really dark moments.
We're always trying to plan things. And the timing's always like slightly, forward or backwards, but yeah, it seems like the themes keep popping up.
Yes. Yeah, they do. So I wanted you on today because I feel like you can help us as filmmakers with a lot of guidance, creativity wise, creating our rituals, creating our spaces. You have a wonderful Substack now that talks all about this stuff weekly. And I love getting the little ping in my inbox saying like,
thank you.
What's this week's?
She's talking again.
She's talking again.
She's got something to say.
And you've really gotten into spaces and feng shui, and that's what your new book is about.
Yeah. So my new book is called Home for Your Higher Self. And what I wanted to do was to extend the energetic work I was doing with all types of clients. You know, I have people all ages, all professions, but everyone's looking to enhance and find more alignment with themselves, to find more connection to really their center, which is funny because we think about contacting and connecting with our spiritual guides for that clarity. And so much of it is about feeling really rooted and connected to self. So that was my work for a really long time, and I still do that, but I started to see the relationship with our environment first being like the container of our body, which is our first home. So there's usually some somatic element to the work I do with clients. And then we started talking about the aura, you know, the greater energetic fields, and how we can protect that, shift it, move it, change it, according to what we desire. We can become kind of like a magnet for what we want. And then I started to get really influenced and excited by the idea of spaces and using them as like such a, you know, buzzy word to say, but like a manifestation portal. Because your environment is either making it more easeful or harder to cultivate, connect with the energy you want in your everyday life. It's where we also feel the most safe usually, or we aim to. And it's where we can really surrender. So for creatives, like filmmakers or anyone in any line of work, to have that place to recharge, to recoup our energy, and to be really with self is going to help the creative flow and the process. So the book is a way to connect spirit and self and space all in one and combine them. There's feng shui elements, there's other manifestation techniques. It's kind of a hybrid.
I love that so much because you're right. Our spaces at home, whatever they look like, is our place to kind of come and recharge and reconnect to ourselves. And sometimes, you know, our spaces hold us in the happiest of moments and then in the saddest of moments too. And I think it's really important. I mean, just from the things that you've taught me over the years, I feel like I've been able to transform the space so I do feel like it's safe and that it's where I can really be creative and have that outlet. So recently you talked about rituals, which I feel like is a big part of your space.
Yes, it is.
So can we talk about ritual stacking? Because going back to the wellness world, habit stacking is like this huge. We hear it all the time. Habit stacking, like make sure you're walking and responding to emails at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's all
Take
about
advantage of every minute.
Right. It's all about, let's see, there was a quote from your, the quote from your Substack was, "We cannot optimize our way to inspiration. We have to tend to it." And I really loved that. And I think that shows the difference between habit stacking and ritual stacking. But can you go further and talk to us about what the difference is?
Absolutely. So I think as creatives and highly sensitive people, we need inputs. We need sensory inputs and inspiration. We need to see beautiful things, hear beautiful things, remind ourselves of those beautiful things. And ritual stacking is my way of taking the healthy habits that I love. I'm super earth dominant. You mentioned being a Capricorn, Virgo rising. Like, I love all the wellnessy things, but I noticed myself checking them off like a checklist and treating myself like a machine. And then I was almost more burnt out, back to that burnout theme, of trying to get it all done in a day and then sit down and be creative. And I realized I need to infuse creativity into everything I do, because we think it's this well with like a limited amount, but it feels like the more, at least in my experience, and I would love to hear yours, the more you express it, the more you have. So a ritual is a way of extending a routine to make it more pleasurable. And I use that word pleasure with clients a lot because we deserve it. We're worthy of all forms of, you know, pleasure through the senses, taste, scent, so on. And rituals are a way to bring a little bit more whimsy and magic to something you're already doing. So when I ritual stack, for example, I have a vibration plate.
I tried it out. It's great.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun.
And, you know, whatever it's doing benefits-wise, fine, great. it's 10 minutes where I'm there in my body and I'm thinking about like energy being shaken from my energy system, moving through my channel, clearing from my aura. So it's just a nice way to kind of like visualize while already doing something that's healthy. And then another good example is when I take my supplements, visualizing them as like supercharged with like healing light, good vibes, watching them move into my body, and just actually taking, you know, an extra 2-3 seconds to give it this next layer of like imagery or intention, and hopefully it works better because I'm enjoying it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think what you put out is what you get back as well. And I loved where you talked about too, casting little spells on your skincare as you're putting it on.
Anointing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, I feel like it forces you to be present as well. Because usually when I'm doing my skincare routine, like thinking about everything I have to do that day or who I have to get back to, or, you know, just all of the things that we have going on in our lives. And so to instead shift that to, you know, this, what is this doing for me and my body with supplements, or, you know, as I'm drinking my coffee, like I'm so grateful to have this coffee. It's like tastes so good.
Stir a little intention into it.
Exactly. So I just love the shift from like, we have to get this done in a checklist, and I'm guilty of it still. Like I wrote a list this morning and I'm like, work out, go for a walk, you know.
The schedule's still scheduled, for sure.
Right. And it feels very transactional versus like actually having a relationship with yourself.
Yeah. And I think also we start to get focused on, let me make sure I do all of them. And I had to reframe that of like, as long as I make gentle offerings to myself multiple times throughout the day, whether my higher self and my authentic self decides to go for a run or not, like it's the offering and the commitment to stay in routine of checking in. It doesn't have to be the same routine every day. And I think that's another thing for intuitive people and for creative people. We need variety too. We need to change it up. Otherwise it becomes really stale really quickly. I know that like a lot of us, we need to be not bored to keep it going. And it's why certain jobs, when they're out of alignment for us, we start to feel that. We feel that stagnation in our bodies. We feel sick, we feel tired, whatever else. But our spiritual practice can really start to feel the same. And that was hard for me to realize. Like I'm 9 years into doing spiritual work and I was like dragging my feet to do certain things. And I realized, okay, the ritual needs to change then because it shouldn't be this way.
Right.
It should be fun.
Right. Yeah. You should continue to enjoy it. Yeah. I'm a manifester in human design, and I cannot do the same thing even 2 days in a row.
No, you can't.
So the going from habits to rituals, because I always thought, you know, something's wrong with me that I can't, you know, form these like daily. And of course, there's things that I do every day. But like this, like very regimented routine. And that goes back to the wellness industry too, of like, you have to have this very concentrated morning routine and you have to do it every single day. But as creatives, I think we're drawn to so many different things in life. And so I think each day is something, it's going to be something different.
And that's why I named my Substack Intuitive Living, because I really believe intuition can touch any part of our lives. And I wanted to be inspired by like the seasons changing and just the natural, you know, astrological seasons, even like times of day, like our hormonal cycles as women, like it's very varied. And I think we don't give ourselves enough credit or grace to switch it up. But when doing so, giving yourself that permission, it's surprising how much more you start to get in return.
Right. Right. And I do also want to touch on, so, you know, we're talking about living intuitively and kind of like being present, but there are times of where we need to be hustling, where we need to be doing, you know, putting out a lot, or, you know, we have a deadline to meet or something like that, where it feels a little bit more intense. So what advice would you give to people who, you know, are in that period of time where it doesn't feel like there's a lot of extra space or slow down to continue with the rituals and still feel good about your practice?
That's such a good question. I would focus more on like nourishment and like charging up, because I think sometimes we think it's all on me, this project, this deadline, it's all on me. And we are spiritual beings, and whether you know, prescribe to this or not, like we have a spiritual team in my belief. So to call on them as a resource, like I'll picture, you know, just a little bit of golden light running through my body if I'm like, I got to get this done. I got to get moving. And therefore not taking from my own reserves, but like asking for creative energy to come to me. That's where co-creation happens.
Yeah.
And like even in the home, like kind of going back to that example too, maybe I move a few things in my office or light a candle and have it represent that really beautiful masculine energy to get things happening, you know? And it's just these like subtle cues that show me I have the resources I need.
So I would like to get into like more of like the nuts and bolts of things.
Yeah,
so if I'm a creative listening to this, filmmaker, writer, actor, whatever it is, and I want to do 3 things today to kind of elevate my space to a place where it feels more intuitive, more energetically aligned with what I'm doing. What would you suggest to somebody?
I feel like this community is going to appreciate this suggestion. I would actually start by scripting what your life at home looks like. So this is one of my favorite manifestation techniques, is to write down like a day in my life or a specific, you know, season of time, like the next 3 months, kind of what I'm moving through or focusing on. And I will record myself in my own voice talking about it. So walking myself through it. You do this in the morning, you do that in the afternoon. This is what your life physically looks like. And I listen to that for the first couple minutes of my day, especially when I'm in a period of like deep creative work or intention, because it keeps me A, focused, but B, dedicated to what those practices need to look like. And the follow through gets easier because you're reminded of that script. So you want to see it actually play out in real life. So seeing like, you know, maybe you're someone who always works at home, but in your script, naturally, a part of you said you go work at a coffee shop. You know, I think sometimes the best change to our experience with our home is actually getting out of it.
Yes.
Occasionally.
Agree.
I have to say that. And then there's little fun like feng shui cures. Like there's one about moving 27 things. So spending time, like even if it's just flipping those pillows, changing the side, you know, I'm looking at Beck's couch, changing a few of these books, just like stirring the energy and not needing to do this whole overhaul, because I think people get very afraid of like, I have to declutter my closet.
Yes. Yeah.
But especially in the space you work in, bringing the novelty of, oh, that wasn't there before, that sparks a new kind of reaction.
Yes. Yeah. I too sometimes get stuck in, you know, like feeling like I need to overhaul something. So then I spend the entire day cleaning out my closet instead of actually doing.
Avoiding the thing.
Avoiding the thing. So the 27 objects thing is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like just moving 27 things.
And it's 27 because it's a very auspicious number in feng shui, because it adds up to 9, 7 and 2. And 9 is a number of completion. So you can consider it like, you know, something you're going to do first and then say, okay, like the cycle of procrastination is complete. My home is ready to be here.
Yes.
And let's do it.
I'm going to do that this week. I have some things that I need to write and get done, and I've been avoiding. So I love that.
Move around.
Okay. So I want to shift a little bit to signatures that you recently wrote about. And I loved this article because you talked about your mom a lot and how she kind of introduced you to the idea of signatures. So before we get into that though, what are signatures?
So it's nothing revolutionary, but growing up, I always heard my mom saying, Kate, you need a signature, blah, blah, blah. Because she could see that I was easily overwhelmed by decisions. And even just, my mom is very creative herself, very sensitive, very in, I hate to use this term, but very in her feminine. She knows what she loves aesthetically. She knows what makes her feel good and feel calm. And she supports herself through those things. And there's certain kind of pillars of the way that she dresses herself, the way that she shows up in her home, how she decorates it, that are very signature to her. So even throughout, you know, the years, all my life that I've known her, they've kind of stuck, and, or the same essence or flavor is behind them. Even if like, you know, her outfits are shifting a little bit, it's like, still feels like her. And it's because she's really in tune with what her authentic self wants. And I think she saw that me, as a creative, wanted to feel grounded by the choices I was making. So she would say, everyone needs a signature scent, or everyone needs a signature drink that they make when people come over. And it just kind of helps you have this repertoire of things, habits, routines, and or items that really make you feel good. So I then wanted to like dive deeper into this and see what other people thought my signatures were and what other friends, you know, could ask their friends, hey, when you think of me, what comes to mind? Even aesthetically, like it doesn't need to be topical. Like I got answers like black flip-flops because I like only wear black flip-flops. My car was one of my signatures. Someone said, who else? What was said? Oh, my sunglasses, the shape that I always wear. Like these things that are just very second nature. But when they see it, they were like, oh, that's Kate.
Yeah.
And to feel known and to feel seen by the people close to you, A, feels good. But B, I've been exploring, I'm actually writing about this week, how learning my signatures has helped me make better buying decisions, especially in my home and my wardrobe. It's helped me consume less, buy less, and have an easier time making choices in the day-to-day. Because I'm sure you feel this way. Like I wake up and I have 6 million ideas.
Yeah.
And my brain, and we both do a lot of different projects at once. So I'm like kind of dabbling between different projects and commitments. I'm getting all these ideas, you know, an Instagram post, a Substack post, whatever. So to wake up and feel like I know what my signature outfit's going to be, like the formula, you know, just makes it easy.
And I think, as creatives, we run into this all the time of decision fatigue. There's so many decisions to be made. There's so many, especially when you're a multi-hyphenate, there's different projects that are happening and there's so many ideas flowing that the last thing I want to think about is my outfit for the day or like how I'm going to do my hair or what makeup I'm going to put on, you know? So having those signatures is really important. I think over the last few years, I've been trying to like really get my style figured out and understand what those signature, like the signature formula is. And it has helped my creative process. Like instead of waking up in like decision fatigue of what am I going to wear? Oh, I'm just going to, you know, put on, you know, a workout outfit, or whatever it is. And then I don't feel as good.
No,
you know, I don't feel like I can show up as well. I don't feel like myself to be able to be creative. So shifting that has really been helpful. So for our listeners, how do they figure out what their signatures are?
So begin by looking around your home as well and notice the things that really light you up, because it's probably leading you to something like a signature value, like something you really value and care about. So for me, like when we get fresh flowers in our home, I really only get them in like 2 or 3 colors. And I noticed that like I was doing it unintentionally. I was like, I always opt for like reds, deep, like rich, warm colors, like oranges and stuff. So then I finally just said, that's your signature. Yeah. That's it. Like when you go buy flowers at Trader Joe's, you're going to opt for those colors. And it made me feel good because it made me realize what naturally like lifts my energy. So I'd say tour your own home and see what sticks out. Like I think one of your signatures is what we talked about when I came over, of like, it's the posters you have. And like that is such a signature Beck thing. So look through your closet, the things that really excite you and light you up, the things that you never even thought about changing. Maybe there's a scent or like a lip gloss where you've used it for years, and then notice how grounding that feels as this like tether to yourself, and then start to add in more.
Yeah, I love that. And I think too, it whenever I see people that I look up to or respect, they all have very distinct signatures.
Because and I think too, like, it doesn't work for everyone, but for people, and I know that, I think there's some creatives who need the constant change. And you kind of have to know yourself. If you're listening and you're like, this sounds super boring to me, totally fair. Right. But for me, it feels like this like gentle kind of consistent pulse of my life that I can rely on so that other things can open up and explore. But yeah, I would say like really, you know, we think of like Steve Jobs in his signature outfit, and very like high achieving people or just people who are juggling a lot of different roles and hats. It's helpful. And I think too, if anyone's listening who's like more in like the performance space, actors and so on, you are quite literally dropping into other characters. So to come home and have that replenishment of like, oh, this is me. I don't know if you think that's true, but.
Oh, 100%. No, whenever I've been on an acting job, I feel like I can pretty easily get out of the headspace of the character, but I often feel like sometimes the physicalities or the just like the things I'm thinking about kind of follow me.
I can imagine.
And so to come home to a space that's very authentically me
Yeah.
or authentically you, if you're listening, does help that and helps kind of like clear that away, actually. So that's a really good point. I
It's
feel
like when you walk through the door, you're like, oh, I'm in my reality.
yes.
And what's funny is hearing you say that, you know, to hear how you kind of take on the mindset, that is like psychic no 101. I'm like, you need psychic protection.
Right.
But it's actually the opposite. You want to be deeply immersed. So it's going to take maybe a couple extra steps to pull you out. That's so fascinating.
Yeah. And then to your point about, you know, creatives wanting to, maybe it sounds boring to have a signature clothing style, whatever, but I almost think if they want more of kind of a wider net of outfits or style or whatever, that's a signature in and of itself.
That is.
Right?
It is.
Because like you see certain people and you're like, oh, you never know what they're going to, you know, you can't expect what they're going to wear, but it's always something like interesting and fun. And like, that's a signature.
Yeah.
Right?
I think an easy one too is to start with like, for instance, like I mostly work out at home. So I was buying all these workout sets and I was like, I don't know if I really like these. I'm just doing it because I think I should. And then I realized I was like, you don't even leave the house to work out. Like you work out in your home. So I'm like, I have a signature legging. I have a bunch of them.
Yep.
And a signature top.
Yep.
And there you go. Like, and I
Right.
can be experimental in other spaces.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You know that it feels good. You know that it's comfortable. It works. It checks all of the boxes. Yeah. So to have that, because there is so much pressure, especially with social media, to jump on the trends or to have like right now I think it's like the Pilates sets.
Yep.
Have you been seeing that in your feed? Like all of a sudden the last couple of weeks everyone's like, you have to have your Pilates set and it has to be matching. It's like leans into so much capitalism.
It is.
And you know we could go down that rabbit hole, but we won't today. But yeah, it just, I feel like when you have your signature pieces, you don't feel the need to do that.
Well, you're bringing up a good point, and you're right. It's kind of like a big topic, but it's that sameness and that capitalistic, you know, trend cycle that's actually pulling you deeper away from your true, authentic expression of your creativity. And I think if you feel, let's take the leggings, for example, like, I like the fit, I like how I feel in them, you know, less time feeling uncomfortable in myself means more time feeling in alignment with myself. So if we can, you know, create these rituals, going back to the rituals and routines that just enhance the everyday, the hard stuff, writing a script, creating a film, you know, for me, writing a book, like that can come with more ease when we're not straining and pulling. It's kind of like, I want to use the term like energetic leaks, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Where we don't need to.
Yeah. Well, Greta Gerwig, the director, is such a good example of this. So, for example, on Barbie, she wore the same jumpsuit every single day, but in different colors.
Love it.
Because she knew it looked good, she felt like she could do her job.
I can perform in this.
She can perform. Yes. Yeah, she and I just find that so, it's just so refreshing, honestly, to not feel like there's, and like it gives you the opportunity to be yourself and to be authentic. And yeah, I just feel like we need more of that. I mean, the greats are the people who own their signatures and own who they are and what they like and what they don't like, and you know.
And I think for Greta's example, I didn't know that about her jumpsuit, although I'm visualizing it now. I'm like, of course. And that was a trigger point for her energy to lock her into that part of herself. When she puts it on now, it creates this energetic, similar to like any ritual you create with your home. If it's closing the door and kind of saying something to like wrap up your day outside, like to think about that transition. That was a transition for her. To get into it meant she was doing her work. An example of mine is like, I have a playlist I've listened to for like 6 years before readings.
Wow.
Every time.
Wow.
And I have to say, like, I'm not lit up or inspired by it anymore. It's been 6 years of the same songs. I shuffle it, but I put it on when I'm like preparing for a client, and it's like my body knows what we're getting into. It's like Pavlov's dogs.
Totally.
I just know instantly what setting we're entering, and it's very deeply grounding. So it makes me better at what I'm doing.
Yes.
Because I'm creating this environment that works for me.
Yeah, it's actually, it's really interesting you say that, because I feel like I have similar things. I have different playlists for different projects that I listen to based on what I'm working on.
That's cool.
And being, tied up in so many different things, it's a really good way to switch my brain and to cue to my brain that, okay, it's time for this instead of that.
That's a great, for anyone listening, to create those playlists and have that, the marker of like, I've been in concentrated creative time, now it's time to switch. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah,
like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about tarot, because
Why not?
we have to. So Kate's first book, called The Inner Tarot, bestseller, was amazing. One of my favorite books. I've given it to so many people.
That's awesome.
And if you're into tarot at all, if you have no idea, I feel like it's for the beginner. It's for somebody who's been around it for a long time. Thank you.
I really tried to find value for both sides, because there are people I read for, and I've been reading cards for almost 12 years now, who, are older than me and are like, I've had a deck since I was in high school, and they're in their 60s or 70s. And I'm like, you're an OG. Like, that's pretty sick. But there's always, and I think this is what I love about the practice, is there's always more to learn. So I tried to bring a lot of new elements to the book, for sure.
Yeah. And so it's your essays and poems and your writing with each card, kind of explaining the meaning of the card, plus how it, like, things that triggered your thoughts and memories and emotions. Yeah. And it's really nice to go through it and read it, honestly, like from cover to cover, because it feels like a story in itself. It doesn't feel like a nonfiction, a typical nonfiction book, like it's very educational while also feeling very emotional and creative. So if anyone is interested, go check out The Inner Tarot. But I want to talk about how tarot can help creatives and especially filmmakers. So, a lot of times I think the initial thought about tarot is like, pulling cards and they're telling you the future. Yeah. Can you dive into that a little bit more and explain that it's not that?
Yes, it's not. So tarot actually began as a regular playing card game in Italy in the 15th century. And the more like aristocratic people would commission an artist to create them a custom deck. So it was their way of getting together, playing a game, and telling stories. So it's always been a storytelling tool first. Over time in history, it took on more of this, connection to divination and psychic work. And that is a part of it. I don't want to discredit that. But for the average person who has a deck of cards and is, using them for their own self-practice, it can be simply a way to affirm and validate and inspire new elements to your day. So what the tarot deck is really showing is the fool's journey, which is exactly like the hero's journey. Honestly, any filmmaker and writer would quickly be able to identify, like, this is the arc. So I think what's neat about it is every time I pull the cards, they do two things. They mirror something that I probably knew, but they also give me they shed new light or give new detail or new context to it. So anyone who's in a creative rut, myself included, could pull a few cards to get things moving. And because they're also visual, and there's so many different decks, so I recommend finding one that really resonates with you. But because they're so visual, like, something might just kind of be triggered for you in a great way. You see a detail on the card and you're like, oh yeah, that's what I want to, write about or explore. And there's just always consistent changes to them. And that's why I love them. Yeah.
No, I have loved just having it in my life generally, but to your point of how visual they are, I've had a few times where I've either been writing, and I've done it when I've done a self-tape before. For the self-tape example, getting prepped for a self-tape, reading the sides, kind of trying to find the character. And a couple of times I've pulled cards, and what's come up on the card has been really interesting to that specific character that I'm about to play. Like, I see something on the card that's like, oh, okay, this kind of affirms what I was thinking, or it adds another layer of, this is what the role should be.
And it gets us out of our heads.
Yes.
Which I think is most important, is like, we are up here overthinking it so much. And I think that's always a really fun thing to watch someone pull a card and be surprised how accurate it feels and how intuitive they really are. Yeah. It's just like, oh, I am kind of magic. It gets us into the flow of what this is supposed to feel like, this being creativity. And it's not super cerebral.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it really does. It affirms the intuition, and it's kind of a gut check.
It's a gut check.
It's like, oh, yeah, I was on the right path. Or, you know, like you said, if you're feeling like you're in a rut, I've been writing a few times and have pulled a couple cards like, oh man, I don't know where this is going. Like, I know where I want it to go and I know the ending, but I don't know the in-between parts. And, you know, I've pulled a couple cards. I'm like, oh, visually, all of these, to get like these 3 cards together are kind of like showing me a picture of what it should be and how I should fill in the gaps. And it's really interesting. And I think there's so much to be said about believing in something, and whether that's your higher self or your intuition or tarot or just like spirituality generally. You know, super anti like established religion, organized religion, but I think this is a way to like tap into yourself and honor yourself.
And that's the thing, like, you're not worshiping or channeling anything. You're actually just mirroring the point of the cards. There's 78 cards in the deck, and the entire deck is a full human experience. Like, it is meant to represent all the lessons and moments in our lives that we see again and again. It's cyclical, but it's not one time. Like, we see the same patterns, and that's the fun part, is like you're pattern recognizing. You're not necessarily drawing any energy down. You can create intention around that. That's a separate conversation. But it's like, it's really just a playful thing when you want it to be.
Yeah, it's about play. And I think we need more of play. And I think going back to the whimsy of, you know, having intentions around your skincare and your supplements, there's so many things in our lives that are so just structured, and you know, there's this outside pressure that we put on it. And so to bring that kind of like playfulness of, you know, maybe when we were a little kid, like we would make up stories about our lives, and so like why not do that now? And you know,
and you can always ask too, like if you pull a card, you can say to yourself, if this card was a movement, what would my body want to do? If this card was a meal, what ingredients would it have? Is it spicy? Is it like, you know, what song would this be? You know, if playlists are really intriguing to someone, like what would you write in a letter to this card? Even if it's not one of the like archetypes, like the queens or the kings, like, you know, who is this card? What are their signatures?
That's really interesting. I feel like that's a really practical way to use the cards, other than just like, you know, pulling a card.
What's going to happen to me?
Am I going in the right direction? Pull a card and, you know, yes or no. Like, I feel like there's so much more to it that you've taught me over the years that has been so helpful in my creativity and, just the way that I show up as an artist.
That's cool to hear.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, so thank you. Okay, so the state of the film industry
is interesting.
We've got a few minutes left, so I would love to get your kind of intuitive take on where things are going, how things are going to shape up.
Totally. I think in general, there's a bit of a renaissance going on in a lot of areas. And I think that the authenticity of true art is going to be abundantly clear. And I think that we're starting to see that in certain performances and moments, and just the real craving for intimacy. And I think the real issue right now is that, and I, by no means do I know everything about the industry, is just, it is also a product of like what I'm assuming feels very like late stage capitalism as well. And it's just so, you know, these monopolies of the different, whatever they're called. What are they called, Beck? The studios, yeah. And that type of stuff, it's just, it's getting really, it feels like when you read a very clear ChatGPT written caption.
Right.
You're like, okay, like nothing. It's not connecting with me. It's not feeling visceral to me. So I think that demand will need to go up before the systems are willing to change, sadly.
Yeah.
But I do think we've talked about like indie stuff is like, that's all I want is just like, show me, in the case of like Substack, show me a typo.
Right.
Show me a mess.
Yeah.
Like, show me something imperfect and impure, because I don't want all of that.
Right.
So I think this goes for most creative industries at this point, and I think that it'll be a wave that really allows, and I think I mentioned this to you, I think it's one of the reasons why like Heated Rivalry went so well.
Yeah.
In addition to just being an incredible story, and fun and beautiful and hot and all the things, but like we have 2 unknown actors and a low budget project. And I think those two things held a lot of magic in that, more than we're giving credit for.
Yeah. So, it had so much heart to it, and you can tell it comes through on the screen. Yeah, Izzy and I talk about this all the time. You know, the film industry right now feels a little bit like the Wild West. Like anything could happen, but we just kind of have to like hold on to the reins and keep going. And I think all of us are in this incredible position right now to shape the way the future looks for the film industry. So we really just got to get out there and do it.
And I think like in most spaces in the world right now, like resistance to what we don't want anymore is going to be really important. So in the case of what you just said, like standing our ground and being like, this is what we want our art to look like. And of course, there's a need to be flexible and work with people and collaborate. But I do think like those boundaries are going to really need to be necessary for a lot of different creative industries. And I think, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. It feels delicate right now. It feels very energetically like it's reminding me of the Chariot card, which is like there's only a way forward. What's working no longer works, or what used to work no longer works. And the Chariot in tarot depicts these two sphinx, like, you know, driving the chariot for the man in the chariot, and they're kind of pointing slightly different ways. And it's really this like point of no return, like I said, but also like if we don't stay focused and clear on our direction, this could get really messy. We could be toppling over. So that's what I mean about the delicateness of it. But it's exciting for, I hope, a little more even playing field.
Yes. Yeah. We all hope.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It was such a pleasure, as always, to talk to you. And I'm so glad that our audience gets to meet you and learn more about you. So if you want to check out Kate, where can they find you?
KateVanHorn.com, Kate Van Horn on Instagram, and Intuitive Living on Substack.
Fabulous. Yeah. It's like one of the best names. I mean, your name is one of the best names.
Thank you.
Kate Van Horn.
Thank you.
KVH. She's iconic. She's
far
the
from
Kate Van Horn.
She's iconic.
Poppy is like, thank you to Poppy for being our third guest today. And I'm so excited for you. I'm so happy for you and all of your success. I love being your friend.
I love being your friend.
And stay tuned for the second book. It's going to be coming out in 2027.
Yes.
But if you want to read Kate's words, go check out her Substack. Highly, highly recommend. I think it's like my #1 recommended Substack on my Substack.
Thank you.
I love it so much, and I love you.
I love you.
Thank you.
This was so fun.
Thank you so much for listening to Indie Spunk Unfiltered. You can find us at Indie Spunk Unfiltered on Instagram, at Beck Benyon, at Izzy Stevens. You can also drop your anonymous questions into our question box. It's at the link in our bio, and it's also in the show notes. See you next week.